major ruling involving the Second Amendment.
God, how cool is this?
The Supreme Court today handed down a major victory for gun control advocates.
A major decision from the Supreme Court that could have larger implications on gun laws nationwide.
Will allow scrutiny for all gun laws pertaining to everything: assault weapons, age restrictions, restrictions on magazines.
Now, this is the most significant Second Amendment ruling in more than a decade.
If you legally own a firearm in America, the next few minutes could save you from a federal prison sentence that you don't even know you're risking right now. A federal appeals court just handed down a decision that completely rewrites the rules, and 10 massive changes are already affecting gun owners across the country. The 10th change is so extreme that what used to land people in federal prison for a decade is now fully protected by the Constitution. Let me start with the most fundamental shift that's happening right now. Federal courts are treating your Second Amendment rights with the same level of protection they give to freedom of speech and religion. This isn't just legal theory, it's creating real consequences for anyone who tries to restrict gun ownership. Here's what this means in practical terms. Every single gun law, whether it's federal, state, or local, now faces what lawyers call strict scrutiny. This is the toughest legal standard that exists in American constitutional law. The government can't just say they want to restrict guns for public safety anymore. They have to prove 3 separate things, and if they fail on any one of them, the law gets struck down. First, they need to show a compelling governmental interest. Not just a good idea or something that might help. They need urgent, severe problems that demand immediate action. Second, the restriction has to be narrowly tailored, meaning it can't sweep up law-abiding citizens along with actual criminals. Third, and this is where most laws fail, they have to prove there's absolutely no other way to achieve their goal without restricting your constitutional rights. Constitutional scholars studying this ruling estimate that between 60 and 70% of current gun regulations across America will fail this test. We're talking about thousands of laws at every level of government that are about to become unenforceable. But protection on paper means nothing if the people enforcing these laws don't face real consequences. That's where the second major change comes in. Law enforcement officers who violate your Second Amendment rights now face direct personal liability. The legal shield that used to protect officers from lawsuits has been completely stripped away when it comes to gun rights violations. This isn't theoretical. Officers are already paying massive personal penalties. In Harris County, Texas, a judge ordered 3 officers to personally pay $2.4 million after they arrested someone for open carrying in a state where open carry is perfectly legal. Down in Florida, a Broward County officer lost his entire pension, worth about $890,000 over his career, after he confiscated legally owned guns during a traffic stop without any legal authority. The message to law enforcement is crystal clear. Violate someone's gun rights and you'll pay for it personally, not your department, not the taxpayers, you. Officers across the country are being retrained on how to interact with armed citizens because the stakes have become too high to make mistakes. This brings us to one of the most shocking changes, the complete end of gun confiscation programs. Red flag laws, civil forfeiture involving firearms, and administrative confiscations have all been struck down under this new constitutional standard.
Government may not regulate individuals' possessions of weapons for self-defense.
The Second Amendment protects the right to carry a gun in public for self-defense.
Saying setting a higher threshold in an emergency could mean life or death. For the Supreme Court, it's all about language, reasonable suspicion, objective reasonable belief, or probable cause.
When things sound really good for gun owners in court, that doesn't mean it's over.
The way these programs worked was genuinely disturbing. Someone could make a complaint about you, an ex going through a bitter divorce, a neighbor who didn't like you, someone you argued with at work. Police would take that complaint to a judge and get an emergency order. Then they'd show up at your home, sometimes without you even knowing a complaint had been filed, and confiscate every firearm you owned on the spot. Getting your guns back meant hiring an attorney and fighting through the court system for months or even years. Across 21 states with red flag laws, police confiscated firearms in about 15,000 cases last year. In more than 2/3 of those cases, no criminal charges were ever filed. Gun owners spent an average of $8,000 to $12,000 in legal fees fighting to get their own property back, with some states taking 14 months on average to return firearms. The new ruling makes it absolutely clear: firearms cannot be seized without placing someone under arrest. Full due process protections are required, including the right to confront your accusers, question witnesses under oath, and present evidence in your defense. Anyone who had firearms taken through these programs within the last 5 years now has clear constitutional grounds to demand immediate return, though most states have created a 90-day filing window, so time is critical. But confiscation wasn't the only way the government was violating privacy. The ATF has been ordered to permanently destroy every digitized gun owner record they've been collecting, and they have 90 days to do it. The scale of what they compiled is staggering. For years, when gun dealers closed their businesses, the ATF collected all their paper transaction records. But instead of just storing them, they digitized everything into a massive searchable database. They could type in any name and instantly see every gun purchase that person made. They could search by firearm type and find everyone who purchased AR-15s or any specific model. Serial numbers, calibers, purchase dates, dealer locations, everything was indexed and searchable in seconds. 6 states were actively feeding information directly into federal databases. California, New York, Connecticut, Illinois, Maryland, and New Jersey all sent state-level purchase records to federal servers. The court gave the ATF 90 days to provide certified proof that every digital record has been permanently erased, with independent forensic auditors verifying the data cannot be recovered. The FBI's background check system received similar orders. They always claimed they didn't retain records of approved gun sales, but internal audits proved they kept that data for an average of 7 years. All of it must now be deleted. The government wasn't just keeping static records either. Federal agencies ran extensive surveillance programs on lawful gun owners that have now been completely shut down. The NSA operated a program internally designated as Gun Watch that automatically flagged people based on internet searches. Looking up terms like bulk ammunition, AR-15 parts, concealed carry laws, or gun show schedules put you on a monitoring list. The Department of Homeland Security ran a separate program monitoring firearms purchases through the financial system. Spending over $1,000 on guns or ammunition within any 30-day window automatically flagged your name for analyst review. The ATF monitored private sales between individuals by watching online classifieds, social media marketplaces, gun forum discussions, and even private messages mentioning firearms. Over 50,000 gun owners were being actively monitored through these programs without knowing it. Early settlements are averaging around $40,000 per person, with some cases reaching $75,000 or higher depending on the extent and duration of monitoring. This brings us to a change affecting millions of Americans right now, the complete overhaul of permit processing. Concealed carry permits must now be issued within 30 days maximum, with total fees capped at $50, including all associated costs. States like New York were taking 8 to 12 months to process applications. California charged $300 or more when combining various fees. Hawaii had issued only 226 concealed carry permits in the entire state's history before this ruling. They've been forced to approve over 3,000 applications in the past month alone, with another 8,000 pending that must be processed within the window. Any permit application pending more than 30 days is automatically approved by federal law right now. Anyone previously denied for failing to show proper cause or good reason can submit new applications, and the old denial cannot be used against them. This is creating the largest expansion of concealed carry rights in United States history. But permits mean nothing without ammunition access. Ammunition purchases are now treated identically to any other legal product. States cannot impose special restrictions that don't apply to other consumer goods. California's background checks for every ammunition purchase, gone. New York's ban on online ammunition sales, unconstitutional. Connecticut's quantity limits, struck down. Illinois's ammunition purchaser identification cards, finished. The court stated the obvious truth that restricting ammunition while claiming to protect gun rights is like protecting free speech while banning paper and ink. California alone conducted over 4 million ammunition background checks last year, with many denials resulting from clerical errors. All those restrictions are now unconstitutional. Online retailers report sales increased 340% in states that previously banned shipping. Licensed firearms dealers received similar protection. The ATF can no longer shut down gun stores over minor paperwork mistakes. They were using zero-tolerance enforcement to close shops over things like recording a buyer's middle initial incorrectly or minor formatting errors on forms. The new standard requires actual criminal violations with intentional law-breaking before licenses can be revoked. Applications for new federal firearms licenses must be processed within 60 days or they're automatically granted. The ATF revoked 122 licenses last year for what they called willful violations, but most were really just paperwork errors. Applications for new licenses have increased 89% in just 2 months. Federal agents are also now prohibited from conducting warrantless searches. The ATF had a practice of showing up unannounced at gun collectors' homes and demanding to inspect collections or examine records. That's completely finished. They need warrants with specific criminal allegations before searching any property. The ATF conducted over 2,400 warrantless home inspections in the past 3 years. Settlement amounts are averaging $75,000 per case, with some exceeding $100,000 depending on circumstances. Finally, and this affects more gun owners than any other change, traveling across state lines with firearms no longer carries arrest risk. What used to result in 10-year mandatory minimum federal prison sentences is now completely legal and constitutionally protected. For years, gun owners were terrified of driving through restrictive states. People got arrested for having competition firearms locked in cases while driving through New Jersey. Others faced charges for properly stored hunting rifles while passing through Maryland. Thousands of arrests happened to law-abiding citizens who were just trying to travel from one legal state to another. The new federal protection is absolute. If firearms are legal where your trip starts and legal where it ends, you're protected during the entire journey through every state in between. Stops for gas and meals are allowed as long as firearms remain secured and you're in continuous transit. New Jersey alone arrested over 800 people in the past 5 years for possessing firearms while traveling through. All those cases are being dropped. The fear of accidentally committing felonies by driving through the wrong state is completely finished. These 10 changes are active right now, fundamentally reshaping gun rights across America. Millions of Americans are affected, whether they know it or not. The legal landscape has shifted dramatically, and understanding these changes could be the difference between exercising your rights and facing unnecessary legal troubles. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.